Hey, it's Nikki. Before we start the show, I wanted to offer you a training course. The training course is all around business building because let's face it, business building is definitely a part of growing sales. And it's one that oftentimes people feel uncomfortable or unsure about. How do you approach that cold contact? Well, this training is authentic sales conversations. It lives inside my Sales Maven Society. And for you as the listener, I pulled it out, put it in a place where you can go and access it right now for free. So again, this is a training that people normally pay me money for, but I put it into a format that you can go and listen and watch this training for free and get the workbook that goes with it that actually gives you some script language of how to open those doors, how to warm up those cold leads. You can get the authentic sales conversation training right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/building. So that's yoursalesmaven.com/building. Go download that, get access to it, go through the training. Even if you just implement one thing from there, you're going to make an impact in your business this year. So good luck. Now, when you're ready, let's start the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master your sales conversations. Today's episode is an on-air coaching call with one of our very own Sales Maven Society members, Kenyatta Christmas. Welcome to the show, friend.
Thank you, Nikki.
I'm so happy to have you here. Will you tell everybody a little bit about you and your business?
Well, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse now for going on 19 years, and more specifically a nurse practitioner. But my business is a consulting service where I help attorneys with medical issues in their cases. That can be, trying to summarize medical records, to chronologies, to sometimes I do expert witness work, depending upon the nature of the case. But the whole focus is attorneys and helping them with the medical issues in their case.
Okay. How long have you had your business now?
Now, probably 4, if not going on 5 years, I think.
Time goes so fast, doesn't it?
It does go so fast.
I'm actually celebrating my 8th year in business, and somebody had to bring it to my attention the other day. They're like, hey, isn't it your 8-year anniversary this month? And I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. But still for you, 4 or 5 years, right? You're like, where does the time go? It goes so fast. All right. So you're doing this with attorneys, and how do they typically find you to do this work for them?
So the clients I've gotten so far, some were word of mouth. Mm-hmm. They reached out to someone who then sent them to me. Mm-hmm. I may have gotten 1 or 2 from my website who's called because they've seen my website.
Did you say the website? So tell us what the website is.
Oh, it's HoughMedicalConsulting.com.
Say it one more time.
HoughMedicalConsulting.com.
Perfect.
And Hough is spelled Hough.
Hough. Thank you. There was a little delay in my audio, so I want to make sure we got it good.
And some I've gotten from marketing cold calling, mm-hmm. which is probably a little rare. And primarily I do mostly expert work.
So expert work is what is that a little bit? Tell us a little about what's expert work considered.
So that is when you're having a case where essentially you have to defend or go against whatever the allegation was. So we are experts, one on each side, to defend the other side, essentially.
I see. Yeah.
So,
okay. So is that a lot of testifying then?
It is testifying.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm so in awe. Yeah, I'm so in awe that this is what your business is.
Yeah.
I'm really, I often am like completely in awe and amazed by the clients that I work with and how amazing it is that you've built this business around this and that you're using your expertise in this way. It's really something. It's special and it's unique and you don't hear about it very often. And I think we have a couple nurses in the Sales Maven Society and you all do something very different with your business. It's so fascinating to me.
There's kind of two different aspects of this business. One is the testifying role and kind of called behind the scenes, just where you do mostly support and other never to testify. So there's kind of two different divisions within the scope. I do both divisions. It just so happens that the bulk of it just happens to be the expert witness section.
Okay. All right. Well, this is fun and fascinating. Now tell me, how can I serve you today? What would be useful for us to talk about?
So we talk about building trust, trust factor, and it's kind of hard building a low Nike trust factor with people who don't know you and you're coming to them kind of blind. And so I've kind of always struggled on how to market, yet how to build that trusting relationship so that, it may not be today, but 2, 3, 4, maybe even a year down the road, we can work together. And I've tried some cold calling. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And then have to get past the gatekeepers, and they're very good gatekeepers.
They get paid the big bucks to be good gatekeepers. That's true. Yeah. Okay. So who decides in the law firm typically that they need your expertise? Is it the lawyer themselves, or is there somebody in the law firm that typically makes that decision?
It's usually the lawyer themselves. Sometimes you'll get reached out from their paralegal on behalf of the lawyer, but it's usually the lawyer themselves who knows what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the question is how to get in front of them. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. What are some of the things that you have done so far? Because I know we did a strategy session a couple months ago about some ideas.
So one was exhibiting.
Yes.
And I had an exhibit session planned actually at the end of September, but it got canceled because of COVID.
Of course.
So that would have been another opportunity. And it's rescheduled again for 2022, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
You can also become sponsors of some of the local state lawyer associations. And sometimes they'll allow you to do like intro sessions for part of some of their meetings, and word of mouth and networking. I'm trying to make connections on LinkedIn because there are a lot of attorneys on LinkedIn. Your ideal client is on LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah. Okay. And then I can't remember if we talked about this. I feel like maybe we didn't in your strategy session, but have you used your existing network? Like, have you reached out to the people who know you, who know people who handle these types of cases, that know these lawyers? Have we done this from a business development strategy? I feel like I don't know that we've talked about it. Okay. It's one of those things that I find over and over again that people tend to ignore this piece that I'm going to give you because it feels vulnerable, frankly. It feels like, oh no, I got to ask somebody for something, and that feels hard to do. And yet, this particular strategy is actually one of the easiest ways to open doors, because when you use your network, people who know you, people who are fans of you or believe in what it is that you do, or people who have worked with you in the past, like these are like all these people, when they introduce you to a potential new client, or in this case, an attorney, you get to ride the coattails of whatever rapport and credibility that they have with that person, right? So like, if I have a good relationship with a lawyer who does this kind of work and I connect you to this person, whatever credibility I have with this lawyer, whether it's my, brother-in-law or whether it's my, friend from high school or whether it's just somebody that I'm in a networking group with, like I've got some level of credibility. So when I do that introduction, you get to ride the coattails of that and vice versa, right? So this actually is one of those strategies that a lot of people, again, kind of ignore because it feels uncomfortable to ask for introductions and ask for connections. And yet those connections oftentimes are your very best next client. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the strategy that I suggest doing. And I'm not sure if I've talked about this on the podcast. I know I have a training about this. And there's a training inside the Sales Maven Society, but I even have this training available for podcast listeners that they can go and download this podcast or not this podcast, but the actual training itself, because I believe in this strategy so much. And I've seen it work over and over and over and over and over again for my own business, but also for my client's business. So here's kind of the exercise that I'm going to give you to do. Okay. So the first thing is I want you to go through your list of contacts. So it could be that you go through people who you're connected to on LinkedIn, or maybe it's just you going through like, who are the people who are in your phone right now? Like you actually have their contact information because they live in your phone. So we've got some kind of relationship with them in some way. And I want you to write down, like, just to get you started, I'm going to say 10 names. But if you can come up with 20, awesome. And if you can only come up with 5, fine. But I'm going to have you shoot for 10. Okay. 10 names. And then I want you to think, what do I know about this particular person? So let's say we're going through your phone and we see somebody that maybe you worked with in the past, but it's somebody who you've had a good relationship with. If you reach out to them, they're going to respond because they're going to be so happy to hear from you, right? So then I want you to think, who might they know that, like maybe you look at their contacts on LinkedIn, frankly, or their friends on Facebook. Like you actually go and do a little bit of cyber stalking and you look and you go, who are they connected to? Like, are they connected to any of the people who I would like to be connected to? And then, so that's the second part of the exercise. You write down who they have connections with. Now, if it turns out that they don't have a connection to a particular, like a very specific person, it's best if we can come up with a specific, like, let's say you go through and you go, they're connected to attorney such and such, right? Then we're going to write that person's name down, that attorney's name down. But if you look and you go, I don't see that they're actually connected to a specific attorney, and I kind of suspect they may know somebody, or at least it's worth an ask to see if they know somebody. Okay. And then the third part of the exercise is I want you to think back to the original person, this person that you, in this case, used to work with. I want you to think about what's the best way to communicate with them based on your relationship. Are they somebody who, okay, we're the kind of friends that text each other, or we're the kind of people who we see each other maybe once a year at a holiday get together or at a reunion or whatever, right? Like we get together about once a year, every quarter, or whatever. And so maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to text them because they're going to be like, why am I getting this weird text out of the blue from you? So think about what's the best way to communicate with them. Do we need to wait until I know we're probably going to be getting together in the next couple months? Or can I send them a text, or should I send them an email? Or maybe I just send them a quick little message through LinkedIn because we're connected there. But think about not how you want to communicate with them, but how do they like you to communicate? Like, what's the norm for you guys? And then I want you to craft a message to them around this. And this messaging, by the way, is in this training. It's called Authentic Sales Conversations. And I actually have a script for you, and you don't have to use my script, and I don't even recommend that you do, but it kind of gives you a structure to get you started, which is basically like, how are you? A couple like opening questions. And then you state your purpose for reaching out, which is to ask for a favor. Now, the nice thing is when you ask somebody for a favor, most people are going to want to say yes to that. even if they're not even sure what you're going to ask, like, is it okay if I ask you for a favor? And then it's like, one of the things I'm spending time focusing on this year to grow my business is to connect with more attorneys who are taking on these types of medical cases. And I'm wondering, or maybe you say, and I noticed that you're connected to, Sarah Sandler, attorney at law, right? Or whatever. Would you be willing to make an introduction on my behalf to Sarah to see if what I offer might benefit her in some way? So this is and again, all this language is here for you, so you don't need to write it down because it's all in the training. I'm actually going to give you a link to it when we stop the recording. Okay. And then you send that message and you just see, will they make an introduction on your behalf? Now, if they are like, hey, I know you see I'm connected to Sarah, but I don't really know her that well, but she's somebody like, she probably would recognize my name, but it'd be weird if I made an introduction. Well, then we might just use her name and we might use the name dropping strategy. So we might reach out to Sarah and say, hey, I see that you are connected to my friend April. April and I go way back. We work together, blah, blah, blah. How do you guys know each other? And the reason I'm reaching out to you is to see if maybe you'd be interested in the services that I provide. So you make some kind of a connection and you would name drop the person who might not be comfortable making the introduction. Now, with this strategy, though, most people are going to say yes to you to making this introduction. And once you do it, once you get through the first kind of round of the 10 or whatever that I'm asking you to do here, you'll see that these introductions start to open conversations for you. And I'm hoping that it will inspire you to keep going through your list of contacts, make a list of another 10. As a matter of fact, one of my private coaching clients today just gave me the same kind of like, Nikki, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Do you have some strategy around it? She's like, I'm going to reach out to 50 people this week. And I was like, that's awesome. And it's a huge number. So let's give you let's give you, I was like, let's do a good, better, best. Okay. If you reach out to 10, we're going to call that your good. And if you reach out to 25, that's going to be your better. And if you reach out to 50, that's the best you could possibly do this week. Congratulations. I think 50 is a lot in a week, frankly, for you, especially if this feels like a stretch. Okay. So even if you do 2 this week, you're going to be ahead of where you were last month. And the thing about this particular exercise, it is a very much a planting seed exercise. So not everything's going to pop right away, but 6 months from now, a year from now, one of those attorneys is going to reach out and be like, hey, Kenyetta, we need you for this case. Are you available? And then you start building these relationships. And then 5 years from now, you're going to look back and go, look at all these great, like reoccurring clients that I have. How did that come about? And you'll track it back and you'll go, this came from this like initiative to ask for introductions.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay.
10 is manageable.
10. Okay, good. I love that 10 is manageable. And maybe for you, we do a good, better, best. And we go, okay, so 5 might be your good, 10 might be your better, and maybe 15 will be your best, right? To like push yourself a little bit. And that way, if you get 11, yay, you pass the better goal. And if you get 6, great, you pass the good goal. Like you're on your way. It's okay. And you just keep going. Not all of them will, not all seeds are going to come up through the soil. We're not going to get something from everything. And yet this introduction strategy, and I probably have talked about it on the podcast before, and I've probably given this exact same kind of strategy, but it works. It works over and over and over again when clients will put it into practice. And it feels a little uncomfortable, but the thing that, well, I should check and not make assumptions here. So I'm going to ask you, is there any part of it that feels awkward or weird? And how can I help you with that?
It feels like a push, and it's kind of like you said, you're asking people to do something for you that in your personal network. Yeah. So, but it makes sense and it's not unreasonable. I've learned as I've kind of gotten into this is that you kind of have to push yourself to uncomfortable and go a little beyond.
Yes.
If you be complacent, then your business will never work.
It's true. It's always going like, how can I level up just a little bit? And that usually means just getting outside my comfort zone just a little bit here, a little bit there, and then you see what happens. So the other thing that I'll say that people often forget, and I'm sure I have probably talked about this, and I know you just said that you just listened to a bunch of podcasts. So I feel like you're probably like, oh gosh, Nikki, I've heard you say this already. Is that we often forget that it's actually a gift when somebody gets to do something nice for somebody else. I don't know how you feel about it, but think about your, like, somebody who you really like or admire. If they reached out to you and asked you to do a favor that was within your power and really didn't cost you anything other than maybe 5-10 minutes of your time, and you did it for them because out of the good grace of your heart, you do this. And as a result, something amazing happens in their life. Like, wouldn't you feel good about yourself that you took that 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
so
like you have a good purpose.
Yeah. And sometimes when there's nothing in it for them necessarily to do it other than to do a good deed. But we all know that when we do good deeds, even when there's like, no necessary, like specific good, it's not like we're getting anything back. It's still sometimes it even feels better to do something when you're not getting anything in return. So I will say that when you give people the opportunity to do this for you, it is a gift for them should they choose to accept it and do it. They'll feel good about themselves. And let's say that just so happens that maybe you don't know this, or maybe you do because of their connections, then it turns out that their, sister-in-law is an attorney, and you wouldn't know that necessarily, but they get to make that connection. And then the next time they see their sister-in-law, they're like, I just have to thank you for bringing Kenyetta into my world because she just helped me win a case, or she just made such a difference in this case that I'm working on. And this is going to make a difference in the life of the person who was wronged in this situation or whatever it was that happened. And like, she's such a blessing. Thank you so much. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found her. Like, that friend is going to be like, oh, I feel so good about myself now.
Did that? Yeah.
Like, I did that. Like, it's that ripple effect, right? Like it's the, what did they call it? It's like the butterfly effect, where they go like a butterfly flaps its wings and like around the world, it becomes this huge like gust of wind, or I'm probably not saying this right. So hopefully someone.
I think I've heard some phrase along with the butterfly.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how it goes.
Yeah. So sometimes what you're asking somebody to do allows for them to make a much bigger impact than that 5 or 10 minutes. For them, it might not even have registered as being a huge deal. Now, for you, it feels like a big deal because you're asking. Like, oh my gosh, I'm asking somebody to do something for me. But if that goes on and becomes something amazing for somebody else, now, of course, it'll be amazing for you because you'll get the benefit of a new client. The attorney will get the benefit of having a trusted resource. But think about the person who might win their case and how that might impact their life, their family, their situation for years and years and years to come.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big ripple effect.
Yes. I love the ripple effect, right? I'm trying to quote things now and they're like not coming to me, but there's something about cast your stone upon the water and let the ripples happen. I'm totally butchered that quote too. Oh.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So that's going to be my first thing that I want you to do more than anything else. I want you to do this exercise and see what happens. Now, just kind of taking it to some other things is like, how can you put yourself in front of big groups of attorneys? And I don't know if did we talk about this? Like, are there networking groups? Are there associations that you can speak in front of in your?
There are. But now that COVID is, they either canceled or they turned to Zoom. And I haven't done any Zoom networking attorney events. I know some people who have, and they tend not to be as good as in person It's just for obvious reasons. But the next biggest one I have coming up will be I think they said it for next April, is another 2-day seminar.
So we need some things before then, because we don't want you waiting till next April to grow your business. Like, that's awesome that it's on your calendar and come next April. Awesome. And what can you do right now? And sometimes if there's not a networking opportunity or a way to put yourself in front of these people through an association, the other thing is, don't ever be afraid to put on your own thing. You could do a little talk and you could invite attorneys to come and learn something from you, where you're not necessarily giving away a ton of your expertise. I certainly don't want you giving, obviously you couldn't anyway, right? Like, you're not giving them advice on their cases, but is there a piece of what it is that you do that you could talk about or teach about that would be interesting to them, that they would find value in giving up a little bit of their time and or targeting their paralegals? Something that would be helpful, where now the paralegal sees you as the trusted resource. You're the person they come to or recommend to the attorney.
That could work. I'm just trying to think of a topic that's general enough, but yet something that they would need.
Well, okay, so let me give you an idea of ways to generate this idea. Okay, so I'm not going to generate the idea for you because you're the expert. And so there's a couple things sometimes I always say, like, ask yourself this question. What is the most common thing that when people learn about what it is that you do, that they have this like, oh, really? Wow, that's a thing? That actually might be your topic. Or something that you say, okay, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. When you said that, it clicked, because honestly, not all attorneys even know that we exist, especially those who are in large firms. Most large, big multi-state firms have in-house legal nurse consultants. So of course they know them, but most smaller firms don't. And probably don't sometimes realize the value that a nurse could bring to your cases, because they might not even know that we exist. A lot of them don't know we exist.
So now it's about informing them, not only that you exist, but how to utilize you. So that could be your topic. How to utilize a nurse in your medical cases. Like the 3 tips or the 3 ways, the 3 techniques or the 3 reasons, could be any of those things, to utilize a nurse expert in your case, in your medical case, or however you would frame that. And then you talk about ways to utilize and the benefits of it, like that topic. And frankly, you could turn that that could be a blog, that could be a PDF download that you could be sending out to people. And it could be something that you teach live too. I'm a big fan of repurpose, recycle, reuse. Like, don't just do one thing with it, do everything with it. Like I'm going to teach this next month in revenue. What do I call my next masterclass coming up is revenue generation, content creation for revenue generation. And I teach in there ways to recycle, repurpose, and reuse content. And I show people like, here's one thing, and here's all the things it becomes every time I do it, to get your mind spinning about what else can I do with this, because that's how you start to get known for something.
I like that idea a lot.
Okay.
I don't know why it never dawned on me, but I guess that's why I'm here.
Well, that's why we get to have this talk. And hopefully somebody listening right now just had that same like, I could do that. That's what I'm hoping, right?
Yes.
But mostly for you, what can you do with it? What can you, and teach people how to utilize your services. Talk about it over and over again. I think there's, I'm so like, I don't know where my head is today, but I cannot think of any of the specific quotes, but there's also one of like, talk about it until you feel like you're so sick of talking about it. And then people will start to ask you about it, but it's only to where you're like, I have said this a million times this year. It's the stuff that I talk about too, that people are like, I've never heard you say that before, Nikki. And I'm always like, let's see, I have 3 books. This particular tip is in all 3 books in some way, right? Like I have 18 podcasts where I talk about, but it's like, it's okay. So this is a quote, like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So you have to keep talking about it over and over and putting it out in different ways, so that people can consume it when they're ready. Because they might go like, okay, yeah, I'm a lawyer, and yeah, maybe I'll pay attention to this. But then it's like, okay, so I have this medical case. I need somebody. There was somebody recently that was talking about that, and then they're going to come track you down because they're ready now. They're going to want to hear, right? So you just have to keep talking about it, keep putting it out there. And then you see if it resonates. And if it doesn't resonate, you basically name it something else and put it out again. Like you just keep doing it over and over again. Okay. All right. Any last question? Or are you feeling like, okay, I got what I was.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah.
In a good way. Good. It was a lot.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a list now. What were you going to say? Sorry.
The using your network. I had a question I had.
Okay.
If you mentioned LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I get some connection request from other nurse consultants or sometimes attorneys, probably because they see we have people in common and, you just hit the request button. How, for those kind of requests or people that I may be interested in, how would you craft a message that's engaging instead of, oh, yay, thank you for connecting? Because then that's kind of not specific, if that makes sense.
Okay. So if somebody's connecting to you, and then I would send back a message and say, thank you so much for connecting. May I ask what prompted you to make the connection? Would love to learn more about you. Would you be willing to share a little bit about you and your business? And then I would say, here's a little bit about me and my business. And I would probably keep it to about 3 sentences about me. So it doesn't feel like I'm word vomiting through LinkedIn about here's all the things that make me so cool, right? It's like just enough, but ask them first, ask them a couple questions. Don't make statements, ask them questions and let them answer and see. And then you go from there. Now, if there's somebody who you want to connect with on LinkedIn and you have somebody in common, that's a great way to use an opener of like, I see that you're connected to April. Can I ask how you guys know each other? Here's how April and I know each other. Would you be interested in being connected here on LinkedIn? Like I would start that and I'd make it really like kind of short and sweet. And then I would dig deeper once they accepted the connection. Thank you so much for accepting the connection. Would love to learn a little bit more about you and your business. Would you be willing to share? Here's a little bit about me and my business. If you're ever interested in talking more or seeing if there's a, collaboration or if I could be a resource to you in some way, please let me know. Like pretty short and sweet and simple. That doesn't seem like it's like salesy and aggressive. I'm always afraid to accept connections on LinkedIn where I instantly get like, here, Nikki, let me sell to you now. Word vomit all over me. And then here's my calendar link. Go schedule a time to meet with me. And I'm always like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And that's what I don't want to happen.
Yeah. Now
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
How be a resource to you.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really used that term, but I kind of like it. You say it a lot.
I do say it a lot.
But it is welcoming, kind of open. I like that. I'm gonna have to start using it.
Play with it and see if it feels authentic, if it feels right to you. You'd be surprised at how often when you extend yourself in that way, people will extend themselves back. Because it's be authentic when you like, don't say it. If you're like, oh no, I didn't really mean I want to be a resource. I just want to sell to you, right? Like they're not going to like that. But if you truly are, I mean, people do reach out to me and said, hey, one way you could be a resource to me, Nikki, is, could you make an introduction to so-and-so? And if I feel like that's the right thing to do, I will. Like actually, my clients reach out to me often and ask if I'll make introductions on their behalf. I love to make introductions for people if it makes sense, unless it's like, hey, Nikki, will you introduce me to your whole email list? No, that's different. That's a different ask. And I think if you're being sincere in it, it will come across in the message. The other thing I was going to say to you is if you want to craft these messages that we've talked about, post them in the Sales Maven Society and tag me. I'm happy to give you some tweaks to them if you just want some feedback. But you got it. Now it's yours. Go do it.
This is awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thanks for saying yes to coming on. It's so fun. I love doing on-air coaching calls. They're my favorite. All right. So as we wrap up today, I always like to end the podcast with 2 questions for you. One is, what's one benefit you've received from being in the Sales Maven Society?
Just one. I will say that I had heard you before on another podcast, more than once on another podcast that I listened to. And you kind of talk about people unsubscribing from your list, and don't be worried about it. And lists. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really think. And then somehow it clicked. Like, when the student is ready to learn, the teacher will appear. And I was like, I think this is exactly what I need. And so I got back on your email list. And I can honestly say that the content in the Sales Maven Society is like gold. I knew nothing about crafting email responses. How do you say certain things? This verbiage would be better than that verbiage. It's like I had no idea. I didn't know that there was like I'm trying to find the correct word. There's like a craft to actually selling something. And in this, I am selling my services, but selling myself is not what I'm used to. I'm not into sales. And so, but it is a craft that you have to own.
Amen. Yes. Well, thank you for that. I love that you're finding so much use out of the content there, and that you are starting to look at sales as a craft. It's something that you can craft. It's a resource that becomes very much who you are and how you show up in your conversations. It makes life easier. It makes business easier. It makes relationships easier. So yeah. Well, we love having you there. Thanks for being here. Okay. So let's say we've got some attorneys listening to this call and they're thinking, well, I need a nurse. I need an expert witness. Or maybe they have a good connection for you. Somebody is like, I know somebody I can introduce you to, because this is what we're talking about today. How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Via email or my website. My email is houghmedical@gmail.com, and Hough is spelled Hough, or my website, houghmedicalconsulting.com.
Perfect. Thank you for saying yes. All
Thank
right. As we wrap up today, if you've been listening to the podcast this year, you know that 2021 is the year of the question. So this week's question is here for you. And here's the question. Who do you know that would benefit from, and then you insert your context here. Who do you know that would benefit from having a nurse as an expert witness? And then here's a follow-up question. Would you be willing to make an introduction on my behalf? I don't think I've given this one on the podcast yet, specifically in this way. So this is a part of the year of the questions. Before we started this episode, Kenyetta was like, Nikki, can I have a list of all of these questions? And I said, yes, you can. And I've already compiled this list for you. It lives in the Sales Maven Society. So if you're wondering if you can have a list of all of these questions that I'm giving for 2021, yes. And the list is in the Sales Maven Society. So come join us. If we haven't connected yet on social media, let's do that. I tend to hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm in Facebook in the Sales Maven Society group every single day, but that's you kind of have to be in the Sales Maven Society to hang out with me there. So if you're not yet ready to come join the Sales Maven Society, connect with me on LinkedIn and or connect with me on Instagram. I love, love, love to hear from listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Kenyatta, for being here. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.